When the cameras rolled and Chris Wallace turned up the pressure, everyone expected a clash. But what unfolded instead was something extraordinary. Jasmine Crockett didn't just answer his toughest questions, she owned the moment with calm authority that left even Wallace speechless. In a world where loud voices often drown out truth, her silence spoke louder than any argument, and the studio froze in awe. Ladies and gentlemen, in a world where live television often becomes a battlefield of egos and emotions, a moment of grace can silence even the loudest noise. Today, we talk about one such moment, a powerful exchange that unfolded between veteran journalist Chris Wallace and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a woman whose composure, intelligence, and quiet strength turned a tense confrontation into an unforgettable masterclass in dignity and truth. The moment began like any other political interview. Probing questions, sharp interruptions, and the relentless push for a soundbite that could go viral. Chris Wallace, known for his rigorous and unfiltered interviewing style, pressed Jasmine Crockett hard on issues that have divided the political landscape, but rather than respond with anger or defensiveness, Crockett responded with something far more powerful: calm authority. Her tone was measured, her words deliberate, and her presence unshakable. Composure is not just an emotional state, it is a deliberate act of power. It is the ability to hold steady when the world around you trembles, to maintain clarity when chaos threatens to consume reason. In the case of Jasmine Crockett, her composure during the tense live interview with Chris Wallace was not accidental. It was intentional, and it was transformative. On that stage, under the piercing lights and relentless questioning, Crockett demonstrated a rare kind of strength that transcended politics. It was the kind of power that cannot be rehearsed or faked. It must come from deep within, from a place of unshakable confidence and purpose. When Wallace began pressing her with challenging questions, the tone of the interview shifted quickly from cordial to confrontational. Most politicians, when caught in the crossfire of rapid inquiries and sharp interjections, tend to lose their rhythm. Some react defensively, others turn combative, but Jasmine Crockett did neither. She paused, looked directly at Wallace, and responded with a calmness that cut through the tension like light through fog. Her words were clear and deliberate, her tone firm yet respectful. Every sentence she spoke carried a sense of control that immediately altered the energy in the room. It was as though she had reclaimed the tempo of the conversation, simply by refusing to match his intensity. That's the true essence of composure. It shifts power dynamics. In any debate, especially on live television, the person who remains calm holds the real control. They dictate the emotional rhythm, they decide when tension rises or falls, and most importantly, they win the audience's trust. People watching from home could sense that Crockett wasn't flustered or threatened. She was grounded. And when someone is grounded, even in the middle of an emotional storm, they command respect. That respect doesn't need to be demanded. It's earned in the silence between words. Crockett's calmness also revealed something that many public figures overlook: anger may capture attention, but composure sustains it. In a time when fiery debates dominate the headlines and shouting matches make for easy ratings, Crockett's serenity was like a refreshing breeze in a storm of noise. She reminded the viewers that dignity doesn't have to bow to aggression. Her ability to stay composed was not about suppressing emotion, but mastering it. This is what separates a reaction from a response. A reaction is immediate, emotional, and often uncontrolled. A response is intentional, thoughtful, and rooted in awareness. Her body language spoke as loudly as her words. There was no eye rolling, no visible frustration, no attempt to overpower the conversation with volume. Instead, she leaned slightly forward, listened attentively, and delivered her answers with measured assurance. That subtle posture communicated something deeper. That she was not there to fight, but to engage. And that is where true leadership is born. The audience saw someone who could handle heat without burning out, who could stand firm without lashing out. This level of composure is not just a personal trait, it's a skill honed through experience, discipline, and a clear sense of purpose. Crockett has often faced criticism and confrontation, both on and off the political stage. Yet, each encounter has shaped her ability to stay calm when others lose control. In this particular interview, Her calmness was more than a reaction to pressure. It was a message. It said, "You cannot shake me." It was a subtle yet powerful declaration of emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence, especially in politics, is often more influential than intellect alone. What makes composure so powerful is that it reflects mastery over oneself. When a person refuses to let another dictate their tone, they reclaim ownership of their narrative. Chris Wallace is an experienced journalist who knows how to test the limits of his guests, but Jasmine Crockett's calm resistance disarmed the very tactic meant to destabilize her. Instead of reacting to his rhythm, she created her own. Her voice became the anchor in a sea of tension, and as a result, she drew not only attention but admiration. The audience, both in the studio and watching from home, could feel that something different was happening. It wasn't just another heated political clash. It was a demonstration of how inner peace can become outer power. Crockett's demeanor turned the moment into a lesson. That composure is not silence, and calmness is not weakness. They are forms of strength that command presence without demanding it. Her unshaken state of mind made her message resonate more deeply. When people see someone calm in the face of pressure, they instinctively trust them more. It's human nature. Composure signals confidence, and confidence inspires credibility. Moreover, her composure under scrutiny had a ripple effect beyond the interview itself. It became a viral talking point on social media, not because of what was said, but because of how it was said. Viewers across the political spectrum applauded her for her restraint, her maturity, and her grace. That's the mark of true influence, when your calmness speaks louder than your words. In a society that often confuses volume with conviction, Jasmine Crockett reminded everyone that the most powerful person in any room is the one who stays centered when others lose balance. Her calm answer wasn't just a response to a question. It was a statement about character. She showed that when you master your emotions, you master your moment. And perhaps that's why the studio fell silent after her reply. Not because she out-argued Chris Wallace, but because she outclassed the confrontation. Her composure didn't just silence a journalist. It silenced the noise of chaos that too often defines public discourse. In that stillness, viewers saw something unforgettable. The unspoken truth that composure is not the absence of emotion, but the presence of wisdom. That day, Jasmine Crockett proved that in a world obsessed with being heard, sometimes the most commanding power lies in being calm. In the heat of political debates and television confrontations, many assume that victory belongs to the loudest voice or the most aggressive stance. Yet, time and again, moments arise that remind us that true influence does not come from volume but from vision. Jasmine Crockett's exchange with Chris Wallace on live television was one such defining moment. A masterclass in how intelligence, when wielded with clarity and confidence, can outshine even the most intense interrogation. When Wallace began pressing Crockett with challenging questions, he was clearly in his element, testing, probing, and attempting to corner her with sharp follow-ups that would make even seasoned politicians stumble. But Crockett, rather than taking the bait, remained poised and analytical. She listened carefully to every word, waited for the right moment, and then delivered responses that were not just articulate but deeply reasoned. Her intelligence was not loud, it was luminous. She didn't try to overpower Wallace. She simply outthought him. This moment highlighted a timeless truth: intensity may dominate the conversation, but intelligence defines it. Crockett's mastery of facts, her understanding of policy, and her ability to connect complex issues with moral clarity all worked together to create a presence that no amount of verbal aggression could shake. Intelligence, in its purest form, does not need to prove itself. It simply reveals itself through precision. In an era where politics is often reduced to sound bites and emotional outbursts, Crockett's performance reminded everyone that intellect still matters. The brilliance of her approach lay in her restraint. Instead of matching Wallace's energy, she redirected it. Each time he pressed harder, she answered smarter. Each question became an opportunity for her to display not just knowledge, but comprehension. The kind of understanding that goes beyond memorizing facts to truly seeing the deeper connections between issues, people, and principles. Her intelligence was not mechanical or robotic, it was human, relatable, and purposeful. When she spoke, there was no arrogance, only assurance. Every word was chosen with care, every example rooted in reality. That's what made her responses so powerful. They weren't rehearsed or rhetorical, they were grounded in authenticity. She understood that audiences today can see through performances, they crave sincerity. Her intelligence connected because it was expressed through empathy, not ego. One of the most striking aspects of her exchange with Wallace was how she handled the pressure. Intensity, especially from a seasoned journalist, can be overwhelming. It's designed to unsettle, to provoke missteps. Yet Crockett's intelligence acted as her shield. Rather than reacting emotionally, she processed analytically. She didn't rush to defend herself, she took time to construct answers that neutralized aggression with clarity. That's the quiet power of intelligence. It turns confrontation into conversation. Her choice of words also reflected her mastery of communication. She spoke not to impress, but to illuminate. Each statement was framed with precision. Informative yet accessible, assertive yet respectful. She didn't drown her answers in jargon, she made them understandable. Which is one of the hallmarks of great communicators. True intelligence, after all, is not about making others feel small, it's about making complex ideas simple enough to inspire understanding. Viewers watching the interview could feel a shift as it unfolded. What began as an intense grilling slowly turned into a mutual acknowledgement of intellect. Even Wallace, known for his persistence and skepticism, had moments where he paused, realizing that Crockett was not easily rattled or manipulated. She had an answer for every challenge, not because she memorized them, but because she knew them. There's a profound difference between knowledge as storage and knowledge as wisdom. Crockett embodied the latter. Her performance also raised an important point about modern political discourse. Too often, debates reward those who speak first, not those who think best. But Crockett reminded the world that intellectual depth still has power, that the ability to reason clearly, to analyze situations deeply, and to communicate thoughtfully are traits that will always outlast theatrics. She showed that intellect can be both kind and commanding, both logical and heartfelt. What made her intelligence so captivating was its balance. She didn't use it to demean or dominate. She used it to build bridges. Between facts and feelings, between policy and people. That's why her calm, rational answers resonated with so many viewers. She wasn't trying to win a verbal fight, she was trying to elevate the discussion. Intelligence, when expressed with humility, becomes an instrument of unity rather than division. As the interview went viral, people weren't just talking about what she said. They were talking about how she said it. Her poise became a symbol of mental strength, her reasoning a model for future leaders. Many viewers described her as a breath of fresh air in a climate of noise and negativity. She didn't need to shout to make her point. She simply let the weight of truth do the talking. What stands out most about that moment is the lasting impression it left. The calm logic of Jasmine Crockett stayed with audiences long after the broadcast ended. In the days that followed, clips of her responses circulated online, each replay reaffirming a powerful message. That real strength lies not in domination, but in articulation. The world doesn't need more people who can shout louder. It needs more who can think deeper. Chris Wallace's intensity met its match that day. Not through confrontation, but through comprehension. Crockett turned the interview into an example of how intellect can command a room without raising its voice. Her intelligence didn't just silence her opponent, it inspired her audience. She proved that the sharpest weapon in any debate isn't a loud voice or a cutting remark. It's a well-prepared mind and a calm heart. In a time when public discourse too often rewards outrage over insight, Jasmine Crockett reminded the world that intelligence, when paired with integrity, is unstoppable. Her performance was a victory for thoughtfulness. A moment that showed that even in the most heated exchanges, brilliance will always outlast intensity. In the ever-evolving arena of modern politics, where outrage often overshadows understanding and confrontation replaces communication, the concept of grace seems almost forgotten. Yet, in her recent live interview with Chris Wallace, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett resurrected that forgotten virtue, and wielded it like a quiet superpower. Her performance wasn't just a display of intellect or composure. It was a demonstration of grace as a deliberate strategy. She proved that dignity is not a weakness in politics, it's a form of influence that speaks directly to the human heart. As the interview unfolded, Chris Wallace, a seasoned journalist known for his sharpness and unyielding pursuit of answers, pushed Crockett on contentious topics with his usual firmness. He interrupted, questioned, and challenged her with the precision of someone who had tested countless political figures before her. But Crockett's reaction was something entirely different. She didn't retreat, and she didn't retaliate. Instead, she chose grace, a calm, confident, and deeply respectful way of engaging that disarmed hostility without ever compromising her principles. Grace in politics is a rare form of power. It's the ability to remain kind under pressure, to respond to aggression with reason, and to rise above personal attacks without appearing weak. Crockett embodied this effortlessly. Her tone never wavered, her words carried warmth without surrendering strength, and her presence radiated poise. It was not the grace of submission, but the grace of self-control. The grace that comes from knowing one's worth and refusing to let someone else dictate the emotional tone of the exchange. Every time Wallace interrupted or intensified the questioning, Crockett responded with patience. She didn't rush to speak or raise her voice to be heard. Instead, she waited, listened, and spoke with an elegance that demanded attention. Her deliberate calmness was not passive. It was powerful. It sent an unspoken message that she would not allow her composure to be taken from her. In doing so, she shifted the balance of the conversation. What began as a potentially heated clash transformed into a subtle display of mutual respect, born from her refusal to descend into hostility. This was not just instinct, it was strategy. Crockett understands that the public eye magnifies everything. Every reaction, every facial expression, every tone of voice becomes part of a larger narrative. She knew that millions would see this exchange. And she decided to control not just her message, but her energy. By choosing grace over aggression, she showed that the most effective form of political strength is not domination, but discipline. Her grace also highlighted something deeply human about leadership. In moments of pressure, people look for someone who remains steady. They admire leaders who don't just win arguments, but who carry themselves with integrity and restraint. Crockett's behavior in that studio communicated that she is a leader who listens before she speaks, who respects the dialogue even when she disagrees, and who understands that power is not measured by the ability to interrupt, but by the ability to connect. Viewers at home noticed it instantly. The contrast between Wallace's sharp questioning and Crockett's serene responses created an emotional rhythm that favored her. Each time she responded, the tension in the air seemed to ease. Not because she avoided difficult questions, but because she handled them with grace. Her body language was open and confident, her eye contact unwavering, and her tone measured. There was no hint of sarcasm, no bitterness, no trace of defensiveness. That is what made the moment unforgettable. It was a rare demonstration of respect in a political world often defined by disrespect. Grace as a political strategy also carries an element of foresight. Crockett wasn't just thinking about winning that moment. She was thinking about how it would resonate beyond the broadcast. Her composure and respect would not only earn her admiration from supporters, but also from critics who could not deny her professionalism. By refusing to meet hostility with hostility, she positioned herself as a unifier, someone who can rise above partisanship and speak from a place of humanity. That is a quality the public hungers for. Moreover, her grace allowed her words to carry more weight. In politics, emotion can cloud perception, but grace clears the air. When Crockett spoke, people listened, not because she was loud, but because she was authentic. Every word carried intention. She didn't just answer questions, she built understanding. Her responses reflected empathy, intellect, and conviction, a combination that few can master. This is why grace is not just a moral choice, but a strategic one. It builds credibility, it diffuses conflict. It allows a leader to appeal not just to the mind, but to the conscience of the audience. Crockett's calmness in the face of confrontation elevated her from a politician to a stateswoman. someone who understands that power is not about controlling others, but about mastering oneself. Her approach also delivered a subtle but important message to women in politics, who are often judged more harshly for their emotions and tone. By staying composed and graceful, she dismantled the stereotype that one must choose between being strong and being kind. She showed that grace and strength are not opposites, they are partners. A graceful leader can be fierce in defense of truth, while still embodying respect and empathy. By the end of the interview, the energy in the studio had shifted entirely. Chris Wallace, though firm as ever, appeared to recognize that he was not speaking to just another guest. He was speaking to a woman who understood the art of communication at its highest level, where words persuade, tone reassures, and grace transforms tension into understanding. In that silence that followed her final response, it was clear that Jasmine Crockett had achieved something rare. She had commanded attention without raising her voice, earned respect without demanding it, and turned a potentially contentious interview into a lesson in emotional intelligence. Her grace did not make her less powerful, it made her unforgettable. She reminded the nation that real leaders don't just fight to be heard. They inspire others to listen. In an age where politics often rewards outrage, Jasmine Crockett's grace stands as a quiet revolution, a reminder that sometimes the most strategic move is not to strike back, but to stand still, speak truth, and let calmness conquer the storm. True leadership is not measured by how loudly one speaks, but by how deeply one's actions and presence resonate. During her live exchange with Chris Wallace, Jasmine Crockett reminded the world that real leadership extends far beyond speeches, slogans, or political debates. It is reflected in character, composure, and conviction. Her calm demeanor under fire did more than defend her position, it defined her as a leader who leads not just through words, but through example. As the cameras rolled and the tension rose, many expected Crockett to meet Wallace's sharp questioning with equal force. After all, television politics has trained audiences to anticipate drama, a clash of personalities, a heated back and forth that feeds the evening headlines. But Crockett refused to play into that performance. She chose integrity over impulse, thoughtfulness over theatrics. And in doing so, she showed what true leadership looks like when stripped of all the noise. Leadership beyond words begins with presence. From the moment Crockett took her seat across from Wallace, she carried herself with quiet authority. Her body language was confident but never arrogant, her gaze steady but not confrontational. She didn't just occupy space. She commanded it through grace, self-awareness, and a sense of purpose that transcended the moment. It wasn't about winning the interview, it was about standing firm in her values, regardless of the pressure. That's what set her apart from so many others who, when pushed, rely on aggression to prove strength. Crockett proved that true leaders don't have to raise their voices to be powerful, they let their calm speak for them. Every answer she gave revealed layers of leadership that go beyond mere rhetoric. She demonstrated patience, empathy, and confidence, qualities that inspire trust rather than fear. Her refusal to be provoked wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a testament to her emotional discipline. She understood that leadership is not about reacting to every challenge, but about responding with clarity and purpose. In that studio, she embodied a principle that many forget: words can persuade, but behavior convinces. Crockett's calm control also revealed a deeper lesson about modern leadership: the power of emotional intelligence. It's easy to memorize facts or rehearse talking points, but it takes true awareness to read a situation, gauge energy, and respond in a way that maintains respect without losing authenticity. When Wallace tried to intensify the questioning, Crockett didn't shut down or strike back. She leaned in with empathy, acknowledging his perspective before asserting her own. This delicate balance, to listen without surrendering one's stance, is the hallmark of great leadership. In politics, where division often dominates, her approach was refreshing. She showed that leadership is not about choosing sides in a shouting match. It's about finding the voice of reason amid the noise. Her answers reflected not only intelligence but compassion, a rare quality in public life today. She spoke not just as a politician defending policy, but as a person advocating for understanding. That ability to humanize complex discussions is what separates true leaders from those who merely hold titles. Another dimension of leadership Crockett displayed was courage. Not the kind that rushes into conflict, but the quieter, steadier kind that refuses to be shaken by it. She didn't back away from Wallace's questions, she faced them head-on, but always with poise. She knew her truth, and she stood by it without resorting to anger or defensiveness. This quiet courage resonated far beyond the studio. It reminded viewers that leadership isn't about overpowering others. It's about standing tall when others expect you to fall. The aftermath of the interview was proof of her impact. Audiences across social media praised her for her grace and discipline, calling her performance a lesson in leadership. People weren't applauding her talking points, they were admiring her temperament. In a political climate dominated by outbursts and insults, Crockett's calmness felt revolutionary. She became a symbol of what leadership should look like, not loud, not theatrical, but grounded, intelligent, and compassionate. Leadership beyond words also means understanding responsibility. Crockett knew that her behavior on that national platform would shape how millions perceived her, and perhaps how they viewed leadership itself. Her calm example challenged the narrative that leaders must always be combative to be effective. Instead, she showed that authenticity, respect, and composure can move hearts more deeply than hostility ever could. There's also a spiritual dimension to the kind of leadership Crockett displayed. A sense of alignment between inner peace and outer strength. Her calm wasn't just for show, it came from a place of inner confidence. That's why it felt genuine. People can sense when calmness is authentic, and Crockett's was. She led with her energy before she led with her words, proving that leadership is as much about who you are as what you say. As the interview ended and silence fell over the studio, it wasn't the sound of defeat or discomfort. It was the sound of respect. Wallace, known for his ability to rattle even the most seasoned guests, seemed momentarily still. Crockett had not just answered his questions. She had changed the rhythm of the exchange. That silence was her victory, not over him, but over the expectation that power must always be loud. In the days that followed, her words were quoted, but her composure was remembered. That's the essence of leadership beyond words. The ability to leave an impression that transcends the conversation. People may forget what you say, but they never forget how you made them feel. Crockett made people feel seen, inspired, and reassured that integrity still exists in public life. Her interview was more than a political moment. It was a masterclass in leadership. She reminded everyone watching that titles, speeches, and platforms mean nothing if not backed by authenticity. Leadership, she showed, is not about commanding attention, it's about commanding respect. And respect, once earned through character, can never be taken away. Jasmine Crockett's calm under pressure didn't just silence a room. It spoke to a nation hungry for leaders who embody humility, wisdom, and unwavering grace. She proved that true leadership is not performed, it's lived. It's not about saying the right words, it's about being the right example. And on that day, without raising her voice, she spoke volumes. As the cameras stopped rolling, the silence in the studio lingered, not out of discomfort, but out of awe. Chris Wallace had pushed, but Jasmine Crockett had risen higher. She didn't just win an argument, she won respect. In an age where shouting often drowns out truth, her quiet strength reminded us of something profound. Real power is calm. Real leadership listens. And real greatness doesn't need to raise its voice to be heard. In a time when shouting has replaced listening and division overshadows dialogue, Jasmine Crockett's calm courage reminds us what real leadership looks like. Let's choose composure over chaos, truth over noise, and respect over rage. Share this story, keep the conversation alive, and demand more leaders who lead not just with words, but with wisdom, grace, and integrity.